mengetahui agama masing-masing dengan seutuh mungkin dan sebaik mungkin. Jangan dipenggal-penggal sesuai dengan madhab, sesuai dengan apa namanya grup-grup yang macam-macam, influencer segala macam. Tetapi dia harus memahami kitab suci dalam artian yang utuh, tidak boleh dipenggal-penggal begitu sesuai dengan kepentingan-kepentingan. Nah, ini problem hermeneutik sebetulnya. Tapi kata-kata hermeneutik juga problematik juga di dalam dunia Islam kan. Tetapi pelan-pelan kita terus menggunakan dengan cara yang lembut. Yang kedua adalah komparasi komparatif. Jadi kita kenalkan setiap sesi 150, 200, sampai 300 orang itu komparasi komparatif. Jadi kita hanya memahami agama sendiri, tetapi juga harus tahu agama orang lain. Nah, kebetulan di Leimena ini ada agama Kristen dan agama Yahudi, dan dikenalkan oleh orang Yahudi sendiri dan oleh orang Kristen sendiri. Nah, itu sulit sekali di sekolah-sekolah yang ada di tanah air. Sulit itu, sulit sekali. Maka peran civil society tidak bisa ditambah. Nah, tapi komparatif itu bagaimana? Jangan model lama membanding-bandingkan agama dan agama saya yang paling benar, lalu yang lain salah. Nah, itu bukan itu metodenya. Tetapi kita harus melihat realitas di lapangan yang begitu very kompleks sebetulnya di lapangan. Keluar sekolah kita sudah masuk wilayah yang betul-betul very moralistik dan multikultural. Jadi dari situlah kita kenalkan, oh iya ada orang lain di luar kita, orang lain yang perlu dihormati sepenuhnya. Tidak boleh dihormati atas nama karena etnis, karena agama, karena keyakinan, karena tidak bisa. Hormati dia sebagai manusia, human being as human being, bukan human being saya menghormati karena agama dan saya. Tidak bisa. Nah, itulah sebenarnya terobosan yang dilakukan oleh program KLB pengalaman 3 tahun lewat apa namanya karena COVID, lalu kita menggunakan Zoom. Wah, itu luar biasa, dan sekarang sudah 6.000 orang itu, dan sebagian alumni dan sebagian 100 atau beberapa orang dari ruangan ini. Yang ketiga, hasilnya itu adalah kolaborasi. Jadi jangankan prejudice, jangankan prasangka, jangankan hate speech, tetapi targetnya adalah bagaimana kita bisa berkolaborasi di dalam negara yang sangat multikultural, yang itu sebetulnya multikultural dan pluralism is the very culture of Indonesia. Tetapi pendidikan agamanya tidak seperti itu. Nah, itu yang lewat apa namanya lewat gerakan masyarakat sipil itu kita ingin memperbaiki saja. 3 itu saja, kompetisi pribadi, kompetisi kolaborasi dan kompetisi. Saya kira cukup karena waktunya sangat banyak. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Kita berikan dulu yang punya Bapak Ibu sekalian. Berbicara tentang LKL ini challenging ya Bapak Ibu, dan pasti membutuhkan waktu banyak. Tapi karena terbatasnya waktu, nanti kita akan lanjutkan dengan tanya jawab bersama beliau. Dan berikutnya kita persilakan Our Excellency Adil Saperstein dari United States Secretariat for International Legislation, Prof. Dan waktunya juga ada 7 menit. Mohon maaf, dipersilakan.
What an honor to be with all of you who are here. The concept of human dignity and human rights has many sources, but religious sources have played a vital role in the evolution of those ideas. While the Universal Declaration does not attempt to ascribe the source of human dignity and human rights, but asserts their existence, as does the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights, where God is not mentioned. The U.S. Declaration of Independence memorably asserts we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, amongst them life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that is the right to determine our destiny, linking this divinely given human dignity and human rights with the human rights. These rights are limited only by the exercise of those exercise of those rights interferes with someone else's fulfilling their rights, in which case we need some form of compromise. In Islam, this idea of human dignity flows from numerous sources that our Muslim scholars are better prepared to discuss, but amongst them is Surah Al-Isra 1770, affirming the special preference within creation that Allah gives to all humanity. That is, in the words of the surah, to all the children of Adam. In Christianity and Judaism, the Bible's affirmation that humans are created in the image of the divine, understood less literally but metaphorically as requiring us to imitate God's characteristics. If God is good and compassionate, we are called to be good and compassionate. If God is special concern for the most vulnerable, we must share the concern and responsibility to help them. If God envisions a world of justice and peace as the ideal world, then we must strive to create a world of justice and peace. And to accept that divine spark in every human being as a source of human dignity requires that we see and embrace the human rights of all, including, as has been said by the earlier speakers, religious freedom. Over and above the aspects of religious freedom to worship, to preach, to teach, and other aspects we think of on a civil level, it means a fundamental notion that no one's rights as a citizen should ever depend upon their religious identity, their religious belief, or their religious peaceful practices of those beliefs. And if and if we're really to embrace that in reality, it requires that we embrace the human rights of all, and that we embrace in every person their humanity, to treat every other person in what the great 20th century Jewish philosopher Mark Buber called an I-you relationship, I and you. Not I and it. To it is to objectivize people. And Brett Sharp told us what happens when you go down the path of making someone less than human, of turning them into an object for your needs. But the I-thou relationship, to use the Shakespearean language of the King James Bible, the I-thou relationship, embracing the humanity of all is absolutely essential. The other leads to oppression and persecution and violence, and as was heard before, war. But embracing the humanity of those who are different religion requires understanding them in deeper ways than just tolerating those who are different. Tolerance is only the foundational beginning. As a great German poet Goethe once observed, tolerance must only be preparatory to open the way to mutual acceptance. True freedom is acknowledgement and understanding. And that is where the cross-cultural religious literacy is absolutely so essential. And Leimena, in the support by its efforts by governmental entities, educational entities, and religious entities here in Indonesia, is one of what in English we call the gold standard, the highest level of what cross-cultural religious literacy ought to be. But that is only the beginning in terms of book learning and what we teach in that regard. Then the next stage has to involve dialogue between each other, able to discuss and talk about our differences, even things that frighten us from our impression of what others believe. And from dialogue, we then go to experiential learning, where we invite each other to celebrate our holidays together, to celebrate our life cycle ceremonies together, to socialize together, to really learn about what the other religion means, and to have the ability to really discuss it. That is what cross-cultural religious literacy really is going to mean. And we learn, for instance, in Judaism, we learned a long time ago that we don't have the only path to salvation. That any people who believe in the one God, and God calls us to be righteous people, to be just people, ethical people. We all have the same path of salvation into heaven. And at this time, we need exactly those interfaith relations more than ever. And there is, even at this bleak time in the world scene, the encouragement and hope that comes from the fact there is more interfaith cooperation and relationships and dialogue and experiences together going on all across the globe, more efforts to work together to create that world of justice and peace than at any time before in all of human history. And in the act of working together, we actually are modeling the kind of world that we hope to create. As Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote in his book, The Home We Hold Together, We Build Together, what then is society? It is where we set aside all considerations of wealth and power and value people for what they are and what they give. It is where Jew and Christian, Muslim and Hindu, Buddhist and Sikh can come together bound by their commonalities and enlarged by their differences. It is where we join in civil conversation about the kind of society we wish to create for the sake of our grandchildren not yet born. It is where we share an overarching identity, a first language of citizenship, despite our different second languages of ethnicity or faith. It is where strangers can become friends. It is not a vehicle for salvation, but it is the most effective form yet devised for respectful coexistence. It is the home we build together when we bring our several gifts in the common good. Let that be the blessing of what this enterprise that we are all about. Because you and I together, we can change the world for good.
Filsafat relasi adil saya dan kau, bukan dia. Baik, terima kasih Yang Mulia. Berikutnya kami persilakan Profesor Madya, Dr. Mohamed Azam, Adil, Direktur Jenderal Islamic Understanding Malaysia. IKIM, silakan Prof, waktunya juga sama 7 menit. Silakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My presentation will cover on the topic given religious literacy to promote emergency, the multi-faith society, the nation perspective. I will cover it both from the Islamic and the nation perspective. From the Islamic perspective, I will just go very brief. Some of the Quranic verses and hadith, and also the notion of Islamic quality, the faith of peaceful coexistence. As far as the Malaysian perspective, being a multicultural nation, so the federal constitution as the supreme law of the federation, and how does it deal with the multi-racial, multi-religious society, and of course, on human dignity, no provisions that can be traced in the federal constitution, but we will cover very brief on the fundamental liberties on that nature and last on rukun negara, which is very similar to Pancasila. Many prominent scholars, including Al-Ghazali, Ibn Al-Jawziyah, have supported the universal position of human dignity. And human dignity, if I may say, is inherent, based on some evidences from Islamic thought and universal declaration of human rights been discussed by many speakers today. However, due to the circumstances of life, dignity or human, we call it this karamatul insan, could sometimes be undermined by pride and arrogance. Inherent refers to something being a permanent or inseparable part of something. Human rights are inherent to humans. Consequently, as a permanent and inseparable part of each and every person, such rights receive no mental restriction, while it also implies that the government cannot arbitrarily give or take away a person's human rights in Islam. human dignity is secured and mentioned in various verses of the Quran. Maybe I just touched one or two from Surah Al-Hujurat, verse 13. O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female, and make you peoples and tribes, that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. And in Surah Adil, chapter 95, verse 4, we have certainly created man in the best of nature, and so many other verses which I have no time to cover. On faith ta'ayush, or we call it the faith of peaceful coexistence, quite a number of Muslim scholars and what we call it the fuqaha, or the Muslim jurisprudence, have touched on this. In particular, where minority non-Muslims live in the majority Muslim countries, be it in Malaysia or be it in Indonesia. Very important that this notion has to be subscribed to everyone, especially to Muslim and non-Muslims. Of course, when we talk about peaceful coexistence, at IKIM, we are currently undergoing a very big project called the Harmony Charter, talking about how this 70-30, to a certain extent, previously was 60 Muslims, majority over 40, but now it's almost 70%. How is this thing can take place under the notion of the faith of peaceful coexistence? Coming to Malaysian perspective, of course, as a nation, as a multicultural nation, we cannot at any time quarrel each other for the sake of ours. We are talking about we are talking about we, not I and you, we are talking about we. And this is very important, as you know, in Malaysia, we have the Peninsula Malaysia, and also in the border states where we have so many diversity in that sense. As far as the federal constitution is concerned, upon independence of he took care of the people in Malaya. In 1963, when we have the two border states, Sabah and Sarawak, including Singapore, formed the Malaysia, or the region of Malaysia, that has a different scenario. Okay. Talking about the federal constitutions and the social contract. On the surface, the federal constitution may seem to be a little bit in favor of the Malays, who are generally professing religion of Islam, as Article 3 mentions about the religion of Islam. The privileges of the Malays and the indigenous in Sabah and Sarawak, Article 153, Bahasa Melayu as a national language, Article 152, and the position of the Malay rulers, Article 838. But these provisions were critical to the social contract, historically agreed between actors, political parties representing the Malays, Chinese, and Indians. In that particular year, or what we call it, towards independence, in return, at that particular time, non-Malays were accorded citizenship along with other essential rights, such as religious freedom, cultural, educational, and economic rights. The unity in the Malaysian plural society is achieved without sacrificing people's unique ethnic, religious, cultural, and regional identities. As far as the federal constitution is concerned, we are talking about federal capabilities that can be found Article 5 and Article 13. Article 3 is a very important provision with regard to the freedom of religion as well as other the religion of Islam as the religion of religion, but other religions may be practiced in peace and harmony in any part of the religion. In addition to Article 3, we have Article 11 with regard to the freedom of religion, and there are some restrictions on this. For example, Article 11.4 that non-Muslims are prohibited to propagate their religions among Muslims. According to the portion of Shah the constitutional provision prohibiting propagation of Muslims reflected the need to protect the Muslims from being put in an equal and advantageous position when dealing with heavily funded foreign missions coming from Malaysia. The military and missionaries of foreign countries. According to Prof. This was in ASEAN Legal Studies, there's a difference between freedom to practice and propagate, citing that this restricted the letter or equality prohibition of religions of non-Muslim and Muslim has more to do with preservation of public order than religious priority. And because of time that given to me has elapsed, so what I can just to conclude here is being a multi-racial minority society, it is very important for Malaysia, especially, to subscribe this notion of freedom and freedom of religion, and this notion of this peaceful coexistence has to be prescribed and has to be subscribed by the entire of the entire Malaysians. And with that, thank you very much.
Terima kasih Prof. Waktunya singkat sekali ya Prof. Jadi tadi tentang freedom of religion, peaceful coexistence, ya, jadi bagaimana bisa hidup bersama dan kebebasan beragama. Baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, narasumber yang terakhir adalah Dr. Mohamed the Executive Director, the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers. Oke, waktunya mohon maaf saya bahasa Indonesia Pak, 7 menit untuk Bapak sama 7 minutes for you, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And assalamu alaikum to everyone, and peace be upon to you all. I want to really begin by acknowledging the fact that we're living in a very difficult time. And we also see that the conflicts that are going on, particularly the conflict and the crisis in the Middle East, is another example of setbacks of our interfaith collaboration and understanding. And as just to applaud and appreciate the organizers of this conference in providing this space for dialogue, we really need it. So my gratitude here goes to the Leimena Institute as well as all the partners who supported these efforts. In the few minutes that they have, I'd like really to mention 4 points. And when you were the last speaker, already a few points were covered. So I'm going to mention maybe some of these points and then focus on those who I believe that get to be covered here. So the point number 1, this is how I see it. 4 points to advance religious literacy to promote unity in faith society. We already heard this morning, just now, that we need to strengthen our own religious literacy as well as that of other religions. This need religion as well as to know to some extent the religion of other people as well, in order really to uphold that human dignity. When we take a closer look at the theology of nearly every religious and faith tradition, we recognize key elements that link them together. We have commonalities in how religious traditions offer a roadmap of shared virtues, which teaches us, it follows on how human beings should act toward one another, the importance of respect, diversity, and mutual understanding. I've already heard about this. Now, the second point I want to make, I see as an important point to advance religious literacy, is we need to recognize and take into consideration the importance of what I call contextual theology. In order for us to address and advance religious literacy, we need to understand the contextual theology. What I mean by that, so for those who express concern whether contextualizing theology, I offer this reminder. Religion does not compromise. It is fundamental when scriptures are adapted to local context and local culture. The universal values of love, compassion, respect, and service are still embedded in all religions, regardless of how progressively the text is interpreted. So, contextual theology does not sway from the fundamental values outlined in various faith traditions, rather enhance the text to best serve people of faith in contemporary society and supporting sustainable peace and social cohesion. Just to give you some example here. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to visit the province of Sabah in Malaysia. When I met with the Mufti of the Sabah province of Malaysia, I saw in his bookshelves what is called Al-Fiqh al-Sabahi. Al-Fiqh al-Sabahi, the Sabah province jurisprudence. So what that means? Basically, they interpreted the theology based on their culture and tradition, which is very critical to avoid any kind of extreme theology coming from outside. Which is really very interesting. So we also know that faith actors and faith communities who have not accepted contextual theology and rather still uphold and adhere to their orthodox positions, local communities must be vigilant, and not to accept the theology that does not synchronize with their own local context and culture. And I can give you a number of examples. When we open doors for machineries and coming and bringing a different theology, we can see that element of extremism exists. Now, my third point, moving quickly, I also see that freedom of religion or belief is the foundation for prosperity as well as for prevention of violence. Religious freedom of belief. The relations to ensuring human dignity and social cohesion a whole of society approach is needed to ensure that freedom of religion or belief. Many regions around the world today have a rich history in ethnic and religious pluralism. However, and unfortunately, religious institutions themselves misinterpret texts as justifications of persecution. So, just to move quickly here to say that currently there are a number of conflicts around the world. More than 111 active conflicts around the world. But we also see that when areas that religious freedom is upheld, we see less tension. And here to give you one example, we are currently working on a 5 years project supported by the Dutch funded program called GISRA, the Joint Initiative for Strategic Religious Action known as GISRA is a landmark project committed to advancing peaceful and just societies. We work in 7 countries, dividing Africa, including Indonesia and Iraq. And the purpose is to equip people on religious literacy, particularly on the advancement of schools. And to mention here the Moroccan Declaration, very famous one, coming from the Islamic theology, coming from the notion of the Medina Charter, Sahifat al-Medina, basically to uphold religious freedom for everyone, regardless of any religious affiliation. People are free. 1400 years ago, Prophet Mohamed, peace be upon him, in Medina, called the entire society in Medina a community, regardless of what Jews, Christians, people of other faith can live together and practice today as well. I always say we have in our religious scriptures, in the Abrahamic traditions, we have elements upholding religious freedom that came before the universal declaration of human rights. We recognize that. We do have that. So, final point I want to make here, we need to support educational opportunities to advance religious literacy for women and youth. for women and youth. Again, then we are working on that. We just completed actually a study for women faith-based mediators, conducted a successful mediation efforts within the communities and between extremist groups.
Kami mengundang 3 penanya, mohon untuk bisa singkat padat 2 menit Bapak Ibu untuk bisa menyampaikan pertanyaannya kepada siapa, dan Bapak Ibu mohon memperkenalkan nama dan dari mana ya Bapak Ibu. Oke, finally kita punya 1 Ibu. Baik, silakan 2 menit untuk penanya memperkenalkan diri dari mana dan silakan yang singkat.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya Nina Adil alias Pak Guru Nina dari SMA Negeri 2 Jombang, Jawa Timur. Langsung saja, terkait dengan perbedaan agama bagi kami masyarakat Indonesia secara umum, sekiranya saya sebagai agama itu sudah tidak ada masalah, apalagi kami sudah menjadi alumni LKLB. Yang menjadi masalah dan menjadi kerisauan di hati kami itu adalah terkait dengan penyikapan perilaku normatif yang selama ini kita terima sebagai sesuatu yang menyimpang. Contohnya adalah LGBT, 7-Eleven, dan perilaku lainnya yang selama ini bagi kami riskan untuk didiamkan. Nah, pertanyaannya adalah bagaimana kesadaran human dignity dan prinsip-prinsip LKLB itu jika dihadapkan dengan kasus seperti itu. Padahal jika kemudian kita atas nama penghormatan hak asasi manusia kemudian diam karena mereka tidak melakukan pelanggaran hukum, yang kami khawatirkan adalah kita akan menjadi kelompok yang individualis, tak peduli, dan ujung-ujungnya adalah pembiaran. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum.
Terima kasih Pak Nina. Jadi intinya bagaimana ya menyikapi kelompok-kelompok yang dianggap menyimpang tadi. Baik, terima kasih Pak Nina untuk waktunya yang singkat. Berikutnya, silakan.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang semuanya. Izin bertanya langsung saja. Sebagai sebuah perkenalkan, nama saya Zulfa, saya dari SMK Al-Ahyar, Banyuwangi, Jawa Timur, Indonesia. Yang ingin saya tanyakan adalah sebagai sebuah pendekatan literasi keagamaan lintas budaya, tentunya seiring berjalannya waktu selama 5 tahun kurang lebih ini perlu pengembangan. Nah, kira-kira poin-poin apa yang bisa kita kembangkan dari konsep-konsep literasi keagamaan supaya lebih relevan? Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih. Bapak Ibu, ini penanya 2 penanya adalah dari alumni yang akan kita berikan terus kepada para alumni yang sudah sangat aktif ya, dan tadi sudah punya kesadaran ya masalah. Bagus sekali. Nah, selanjutnya silakan Ibu.
Ya, terima kasih Ibu Sakinaya. Saya Rumiati dari Direktorat Jenderal Hak Asasi Manusia. Saya mungkin ingin menanyakan terkait dengan pemberdayaan perempuan dan anak. Kalau di Indonesia kita sudah banyak usaha untuk memberdayakan perempuan dan anak, terutama di ranah di aksi HAM nasional, di mana sampai saat ini kita sudah generasi kelima. Kalau kita lihat dari hasilnya, sebenarnya sudah tersosialisasi dengan baik dan sudah didapatkan mengerti oleh masyarakat. Tapi memang ujung permuaannya adalah pendidikan dan budaya. Nah, saya mintanya nih sama Pak bagaimana sih kiat-kiatnya? Karena di Indonesia pun sebenarnya pemberdayaan perempuan ini nanti kaitannya dengan iman diri dan rohani, terutama dalam literasi dan seterusnya. Nah, yang ini saya ingin tanyakan adalah bagaimana pengalaman Bapak Ibu speaker di depan dalam meningkatkan persentase keterlibatan perempuan dan anak, khususnya untuk meningkatkan
well, thank you, and I'm very thankful to my sister who brought this important topic back, right? So we can talk about the role of women empowerment. It is very critical, as I mentioned in my speech. Despite women expressing the need for the training, basically what we found in the study that the lack of women religious literacy hinder their ability to enhance their mediation practices. So it's very important to advance, basically their education. There are two countries in the Muslim world that are probably exceptional to the norm. Indonesia is one of them. I understand you have the Aliman conference, Ulama conference. And then the second one is Morocco. They have the Murshidat, the guidance. They train them in religious and they go out and teach in the mosque and teach the communities. So and you can see that's reflected positively in the society as well. And then, as some of you probably, the famous poet, Hafiz Ibrahim, who said, الأم مدرسة إذا أعددتها أعددت شعبا طيب الأعراق. Right? So basically, he said, the woman, the mother is a school. If you prepare and educate her very well, you will have prepared the entire nation very well. So we must ensure that we increase the religious literacy of youth as well, and increase their capacity to meaningfully engage in interreligious dialogue in order for them to become impactful leaders and effectively engage in community-led initiative at the grassroots level. We must ensure that we create international space for women and youth to sit at the table and ensure their voices is heard at the table through decision-making capacity. Through the support of the US Embassy in Thailand, I traveled to the south of Thailand and engaged Buddhist women and youth and Muslims. And then that was the opportunity to have that kind of interreligious engagement and understanding. They live together, but they never actually work together. So it's really very critical. The study shows for us that if women involved in mediation efforts, there is 60%, 64% most likely the agreements will fail. That's just because of the law. So it's really very important for all of us to focus on this and the interest of youth in terms of engaging in mediation or engaging in interreligious dialogue is so high. Just to give you another example, we just conducted training for youth, religion, and mediation 2 weeks ago in Helsinki. We have only 20 spots. When we announced, we get 750 applications from all over. 750 applications for 20 opportunities for youth. We really need to find the best way to do that, because this is the investment that we can make for our youth. Finally, regarding children, there is an organization that I'm member for network called the Global Network of Religions for Children. The Global Network of Religions for Children. They have an annual meeting. The next one is coming up in next year. I can provide more information. It's going to be hosted in the UAE. It brings together 600-700 children from around the world. How to increase their capacity and empowerment. So with that, thank you so much.
Terima kasih Dr. Sanusi. Selanjutnya silakan Prof. Azam.
Oke, saya boleh jawab bahasa Melayu.
Oh, boleh.
Oke, apabila kita bercakap tentang normalisasi bagi apa yang dianggap sebagai bercanggah dengan hukum Islam, iaitu diberi maksud tadi oleh persoalannya yang menurut LGBT dalam Islam hukumnya sudah nyata. Tapi yang penting sekali yang perlu kita hargai adalah bagaimana kita mengambil pendekatan bahawa mereka itu mempunyai hak sebagai seorang manusia dalam konteks umpamanya dalam pendidikan, dalam mengambil ubatannya, tidak boleh masuk ward, tidak boleh masuk hospital. Jadi itu isu yang berbeza. Kerana itu berdekatan berdakwah, berdekatan untuk mendidik mereka amat penting. Kerana itu di Malaysia pendekatan yang diambil dan pendekatan yang betul-betul berhikmah. Adanya beberapa rancangan program seperti Budaya yang berdekatkan dengan mereka dan akhirnya mereka telah keluar daripada hukum yang mereka telah warisi. Agak sukar, tetapi kerana mereka itu secara volunteer telah memasuki beberapa program yang akhirnya mereka itu keluar daripada amalan-amalan yang dianggap sebagai semua itu pada. Tapi dari sudut undang-undang di Indonesia mengikut perlembagaan tersebut mereka itu mempunyai hak sebagai seorang manusia. Dan itu saya kira menjawab persoalan yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua berkenaan dengan literasi agama ini amat penting bagi masyarakat yang agung. Masyarakat yang berhubungan kaum tak kira sama ada yang majoriti atau minoriti. Kerana itu dalam faith, dalam jurisprudence, sampai jurisprudence kita ada bagaimana kita mengendalikan masyarakat kalau itu masyarakat majoriti yang muslim. Di sebab umpamanya di Indonesia dan Malaysia maka kita pakai faith ta'ayush. Tetapi kalau kita masyarakat muslim yang minoriti di negara majoriti yang bukan Islam di Eropah, di Australia dan sebagainya, maka kita guna faith al-Qur'an. Maka apa yang berarti di sini kita kena faham. Kalau dalam faith ta'ayush umpamanya semalam hari di Bali, hari ini di Malaysia cuti, sini tak cuti. Di Malaysia, satu Malaysia cuti. Menggantikan hari Ahad, itu hari yang sepatutnya semua orang bercuti. Tapi kerana hari ini jatuh pada hari Ahad, kami meraihkan walaupun magnetnya amat sedikit cuti hari ini. Tapi saya datang ke sini juga, walaupun di Indonesia tidak. Saya nak cerita bagaimana kita mendekati fahaman notion of faith al-Islam. Dalam faith al-Akhirat, kalau bagi orang Muslim tinggal di negara non-Muslim majoriti, maka mereka perlulah saya panggil mengikut keadaan. Mereka tidak boleh melaksanakan keseluruhan apa yang ada dalam ajaran Islam untuk mereka nak pakai dalam negara yang bukan Islam. Umpamanya mereka nak laksanakan undang-undang hudud di negara bukan yang majoriti bukan Islam, mustahil sama sekali. Maka dia akan yang berdasar yang akan disiapkan mahu berbunuh dengan negara Islam kerana saya nak melaksanakan undang. Ini tidak dapat diterima kerana mereka itu minoriti. Kenapa hal itu faith al-Quran ini? Kerana ikutan di universitas tidak pernah untuk cara berbicara. Yang ketiga yang berkenaan dengan hak wanita. Dan kadang-kadang ini merupakan satu yang penting dan telah dijelaskan. Tidak ada dalam Quran surah Al-Rujuh. Yang ada surah An-Nisa, yaitu surah berkenaan dengan wanita. Tidak ada surah laki-laki. Kenapa tidak ada surah laki-laki? Kenapa ada yang wanita? Karena Islam mengangkat tinggi martabat wanita dan membela wanita itu. Panjang surahnya, surah wanita cerita lebih banyak detailnya itu. Yang mengatasi amalan yang tidak mengikut Islam itu bukannya agama, tapi budaya. Budaya itu yang mengabaikan apa yang diajar dalam Islam. Kerana itu budaya mestilah sesuai dan sesuai dengan agama. Kerana itu dalam konteks umpamanya dalam dunia HAM yang dalam lembaga persekutuan di Malaysia sebagai contoh di bawah perkara itu inform. Kerana itu siapa-siapa saja boleh menjadi perdana menteri saya juga dia itu lagi wanita. Apa saja jawatannya kecuali untuk jadi agung saja tak boleh. Itu dia king. Tak boleh seorang wanita di Indonesia kerana seseorang yang tidak di kalangan seminar sultan yang mesti ada lagi dalam undang-undang hukum negeri. Tapi yang lain-lain itu kata di Indonesia pun sebagai hakim-hakim di mahkamah syariah pun sudah ada hakim wanita. Dulu ya tidak ada, tapi dalam saya kan dalam 2006 sudah ada tendensi kita menanti hakim-hakim di mahkamah syariah. Untuk pertama kali jabatan hakiman jabatan DJK Jakim jabatan Ketua Desa Malaysia merupakan satu institusi terpenting dan tertinggi di Malaysia di Lintas. Seorang wanita hanya mengetahuinya. ini menunjukkan bahwa ada agama yang memberikan hak yang sama itu. Dan itu kadang-kadang begitu sekali. Saya kira untuk dibicarakan lebih panjang masalah ini. Kesimpulannya ialah apa yang saya katakan di sini ya. Kita membaca narasi dalam pemikiran itu detail adanya dalam tradisi itu hadis-hadis sejumlah tahun itu. Dan juga para ulama sama sidang maupun yang kontemporer yang menulis dan membicarakan hal ini mengikut kehendak apa yang dianggap Islam. Hanya persepsi kita budaya kita saja yang kadang-kadang tidak mengikut lunas dalam Islam. Sekian dahulu, terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Yang mulia untuk bisa menjawab.
So a few quick responses to add to what's been said already. First on women, just to make a descriptive observation, we know the difference that educating girls and young women have on a society. Wherever girls are being educated, those communities are more stable, more prosperous, more resilient to extremism. Why is it that Malaysia was attacked by extremists? Why is it that Boko Haram target schools? Whereas Nick Kristof, the great New York Times writer, once observed, the best way to combat extremism is not by drones dropping bombs, it's by educating young girls. And it makes all the difference. So there's a functional reason, over and above all the moral reasons, all of the legal reasons, and human rights reasons, why this is so essential to the future of the world. Secondly, in terms of the future of CCRL, so I tried to lay that out in my remarks. It's not just expanding the number of teachers and therefore the number of students, which is indispensable, but I hope opportunities will continually evolve to give the opportunity to actually encounter people of different religions, to visit within the restrictions of what certain religions may impose on their followers, to go and see what ceremonies are like in other religions, and learn about them firsthand. Be part of the life cycle celebrations of other faith traditions. You will learn more that way than you can just in the books alone. But doing together, working together to make your communities better, feeding hungry people of whatever religion in your community, sheltering homeless people, ensuring every child is being educated, working together to protect the environment. The more you do together, the more you build not just knowledge of each other, but trust between each other. And all of those things lead to seeing the human in the other, seeing an I-now relation, an I-you relation, and that kind of interaction is essential. So as part of an overall strategy, we need to begin to think creatively about ways to implement those kinds of opportunities. The trickiest question of all is the LGBTQ community question. And I really understand and respect the differences that exist in different religions about this. I can offer several different observations and suggestions. I mean, one is, there are times when you can teach about things that you where you wouldn't want to teach as it necessarily being good or bad. In other words, you can teach about how other religions view LGBTQ people without endorsing that position. And that's one way of conveying a range of opinions that might exist, but still without changing the views of your own religious tradition. Also, this same encounter, human encounter, that I talked about, really transforms the way that people think about those who are different, including the LGBTQ community, from in societies that there's not developed a full range of protections of people. So why did gay marriage get accepted in the United States? Astonishingly, in under 20 years, it went from a major majority against gay marriage to a major majority in favor of gay marriage. How did that happen? It happened because its laws began to protect the rights against discrimination of the LGBTQ community. All of a sudden, in everyone's family and circle of friends, people announced they were gay. People they had known all their lives, people they loved, people they were part of their lives. And all of a sudden, they became less frightened, simply because of the reasons that Richard was talking about, that human engagement stops us from being scared of what we don't know. It didn't necessarily mean within religions that they change their views, but even religions that don't approve of LGBTQ community, some of the more fundamentalists, and I'm not talking extremists now, theologically fundamentalist segments of Catholic community and Protestant communities and Muslim communities and others, even when they didn't change their views, they stopped demonizing the LGBTQ community. They were taught with respect about it, even while they didn't change their views religiously on the behavior of people in terms of same-sex relationships. And it began to tone down some of the anger and angst and fears that people have of those who are different. That's always going to be true, and there may be ways to begin to at least stop demonizing people, even if they're not going to be fully accepted.
Ya, terima kasih Pak. Kita berikan dulu jadi stop ya, diskriminasi orang ya. Thank you. Yang terakhir silakan Prof. Mohamed.
Baik, terima kasih. Yang pertama dari Abu Dejen tadi, saya kira hak perempuan itu sudah sangat-sangat progresif sekali di Indonesia, sangat maju ya, dengan pusat studi wanita yang sudah dimulai tahun 1990-an. Saya kira luar biasa kemajuan. Apalagi the rise of education, co-education itu semua merubah tatanan. Wanita-wanita sekarang S2, S3, pengalaman NGO dan lain sebagainya itu, saya kira itu penting. Dan itu tadi yang disebut bahwa sebetulnya mereka punya ketahanan more resilient sekarang. Dan yang paling saya kira historically sangat penting di Indonesia adalah digudangkannya undang-undang tindak pidana kekerasan seksual. Saya kira itu perjuangan wanita yang luar biasa. 12 tahun dia menggantung di DPR dan juga di pemerintah. Tetapi LSM wanita, LSM wanita dan juga LSM laki-laki bekerja sama, kongres ulama perempuan segala macam itu unimaginable. Dan akhirnya undang-undang tentang tindak pidana kekerasan seksual diterima oleh negara, diundangkan. Itu luar biasa saya kira ibu dari Dejen tadi itu. Ya, tetapi tetap saja religious literacy yang kita dengungkan hari ini itu tetap saja adalah contested area of interpretation. Contested area of interpretation. Jadi kita memang tidak boleh lengah, tidak boleh lupa bahwa memang masih ada hal yang tidak semacam itu. Oke, yang kedua tentang bagaimana pengembangan literasi ini, Mas Zulfa. Betul saya kira. Jadi literasi keagamaan bukan statis, tetapi sangat dinamis. Nah, untuk itu pengembangannya sangat penting. Kita punya memang tadi disebut tadi pagi tentang moderasi keagamaan dan lain sebagainya, sudah berjalan 2-3 tahun. Tetapi tetap harus kita lihat apakah moderasi beragama itu bentuk KKP atau tidak? Itu ya, kebebasan beragama dan berkeyakinan. Saya kira LSM memberi catatan juga bahwa moderasi beragama agak minus bicara tentang KBB, kebebasan beragama dan berkeyakinan. Nah, disitulah saya kira perlu saya kira tadi Anda mengatakan bahwa memang itu adalah konsep yang harus dan on top of that, literasi jangan kemudian disempitkan menjadi your own religion. Itu yang paling berat tantangannya. Karena kemarin saya mengikuti diskusi tentang filantropi, tetapi nyatanya filantropi itu sulit sekali yang berbasis agama untuk helping strangers, itu masih sulit sekali. Nah, maka kalau religious literacy tetapi belum bisa keluar dari community egoisme keagamaan, saya kira juga belum religious literacy dalam artian yang benar. Kita harus melintasi beyond the limits itu tadi, beyond the border, masuk ke helping strangers. Itu paling berat tantangan bagi agama. Terakhir paling sulit adalah Mbak Nina tadi itu, Pak Nina dari Jombang ini. Ya, Jombang ini memang tempatnya para intelektual Muslim. Maka pertanyaannya sangat mendasar tadi tentang LGBT, modern dan lain sebagainya tadi itu. Nah, inilah saya kira kita harus bicara itu secara serius. Jangan dianggap itu tidak ada. Memang ada dan memang harus diangkat, dibicarakan dengan sadar. Tetapi intinya adalah tidak bisa mendekati masalah LGBT dan so forth itu dengan perspektif yang sempit. Perspektifnya memang harus cross border of discipline, cross disiplin dan trans disiplin. Kalau Anda melihat dengan agama, cepat Anda menjawab bahwa itu tidak titik. Nah ini, kalau itu tidak boleh titik begitu, lalu bertentangan dengan tema besar konferensi kita, karena kita bicara tentang hak-hak fundamental human right. Tadi sudah disebut bagaimana menjawab, dan yang paling pokok adalah hak untuk hidup. Di sini beratnya agama-agama, konsep-konsep agama sulit sekali. Kalau kita jatuh kepada parokialisme dan sektarianisme, maka akan sulit memberi hak hidup, dan itu sangat esensial di dalam human right. Tidak hanya itu, ketika hak hidup tidak boleh, katakanlah itu boleh, tetapi dia tidak boleh mencari makan. Lalu cari makannya di perempatan jalan. Itu tokoh-tokoh agama, alumni RKDB harus berpakat. Bagaimana menjelaskan ini? Hak-hak ekonomi mereka, hak-hak kesehatan, belum lagi hak-hak pendidikan, apakah mereka kemudian tidak boleh belajar? Berat sekali. Nah, kalau transdisiplin semacam itu, jadi melibatkan ada sains, ada sosial, dan juga ada agama, nah baru ada bisa problem, kompleks problem solving itu bisa dilakukan. Tetapi kalau pendekatannya monodisiplin, saya sangat-sangat tidak banyak pesimis untuk solving the problem. Kalau pendekatan Anda pendekatan monodisiplin, yang diperlukan orang-orang Jepang adalah pada ulum wasiwajul ma'ani. Itulah namanya integrasi keilmuan. Itu kira-kira. Terima kasih karena Pak.
Terima kasih sekalian. Saya sekali waktunya sudah habis, memang diskusi yang tidak akan pernah habis dan memang tidak boleh selesai di ruangan ini Bapak Ibu, sehingga anak lebih harus tetap berjalan ya. Setuju ya Bapak Ibu ya.
If you allow me for 30 seconds,
bagaimana ya, baik di belakang ya, baik nomor dan nanti saja dia mau please.
First of all, on the LGBTQ, it is the responsibility for releasing to address the issue. David Saperstein and I'm sure you remember this. 13 or 15 years ago, the Islamic community, Islamic Society of North America, and the Union for Reform Judaism, the largest Jewish group and the largest Islamic group, we came up with a statement upholding the human rights of LGBT communities. Right. We understand that you have no right, religious you have, but the human rights have to be guaranteed. Now, the commitment I need from this audience, and this is bringing it back to the role of women and youth. Now, I'm going to read. I urge each person in this room to take proactive efforts to include women and youth within all elements of your work. Evaluate your current programming initiatives, pinpointing any gaps where youth and women are not actively involved. Then take action to adjust and guarantee their meaningful engagement. Let us all commit to making our initiatives truly inclusive to help ensure societies can reach sustainable.
Yes, agree 100%. Thank you. Yes, karena time constraint, jadi tidak bisa give you more time. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu sekalian, saya kira sekali lagi KLB Pak Matius memang harus tetap terus berjalan dan berdunia ya, karena masih banyak yang perlu kita diskusikan ya Bapak Ibu sekalian. Saya tidak akan menyimpulkan, tetapi saya kira ada beberapa benang merah di antara beberapa narasumber tadi dari Prof Amin. Beliau meng-highlight bahwa memang tidak cukup hanya dengan bertumpu pada transformasi atau berbicara hukum ya Prof, tetapi pendidikan dan bagaimana metode pembelajaran agama yang buku didobrak kira-kira ya Prof ya, sehingga kemudian kata Pak Sanusi tadi harus ada kontekstual teologi atau teologi yang kontekstual, dan tadi dari yang mulia Pak David Saperstein bahwa menarik sekali bahwa tentang model relasi you and I yang menempatkan manusia pada subjek bukan objek, sehingga semua berharga. Dan dimulai dengan menurut beliau pertama toleransi, kemudian dialog, dan kemudian bekerja sama atau cooperation. Dan Prof Azam tadi juga Pak Sanusi tidak ada agama yang melarang ya bicara tentang, bahkan sangat mendukung tentang martabat manusia. Dan menurut Prof Azam tadi intinya adalah religious freedom and peaceful coexistence gitu ya Prof Azam. Dan saya kira semua setuju dengan tadi yang disampaikan terakhir oleh Pak Sanusi bahwa kita harus melibatkan perempuan dan anak. Saya kira begitu, dan anak muda ya, perempuan, anak, dan anak muda. Baik, terima kasih Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita berikan aplaus sekali lagi yang meriah untuk semuanya. Yang saya yakin sekali lagi ingin berdiskusi lebih panjang, tetapi karena waktunya terbatas dan masih ada diskusi panel yang juga tidak kalah menarik. Dan dari saya terima kasih untuk semua narasumber, sangat menarik dan sangat memperkaya keilmuan kita apa yang Bapak-Bapak sampaikan. Mudah-mudahan nanti bisa kita tindak lanjutnya. Sorry, I have to speak in bahasa apa. Dan kepada semua peserta juga terima kasih. Mohon maaf jika ada kekurangan di sana sini. Bila itu Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.